Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. Welcome to our second data quality webinar at Datashift. My name is Max. I'm the data quality practice lead, and I focus on internal strategy and launching DQ initiatives at our clients. This is my colleague, Lynn.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lynn, a data governance lead here at Datashift and working on data governance and data quality projects at our clients.
Yeah. As you know, it's the second one. So last time we talked about the interesting topic of the value of AI, right, with regards to data quality projects. And today we address the topic which is high on the agenda of our clients today. However, they understand the value of data quality. However, to put it into practice and to make sure that your data is impactful and trustworthy, and obviously drive innovation, it's super important that they have a structural approach to data quality. And therefore, we have this session today to basically reflect on how you can invest structurally in a data quality tool and what you should keep in mind in making this decision. Hence why we also asked Lynn to join us to continue and to go through this journey together. So how do I select the right data quality tool? We have a couple of questions that we have foreseen that we want to go through today, because it's always a worry at clients. What is the best decision? What do we want to focus on first? And do I actually need an all-around data quality tool or not? But also what type of issues can arise from, for example, a lack of user friendliness, because it can be often that it's a central owned, more technical solution, which is not always user friendly for your business users. So that is something that we will focus on as well. Also a lack of scalability. It's super important that you look into your organization and how you have your data quality structure today, but also think about your future and how it can evaluate over time and how it can grow. But also what it's important to highlight today is basically the importance of metrics or good metrics that you really need to keep in mind going through this data quality tool process. And that is really something that we want to dive in together. So let's get started. So first, before we start, some disclaimers. It's not all about tooling, right? You need to find a very good combination between the mix, or a mix between the right people, the right processes, and then obviously also right tooling. It's very important that if you want to have that performed and implementation to structurally improve your data quality, that these three align very well. So like data quality, it's not a purpose in itself, right? It's a means to an end, but it's not a purpose as such. That's why value is super important, and that we need to understand where that value lies. But also the objective is really to simplify data quality with a tool and not to overly complicate it.
Right. Well, let's start from your company. Your company is unique in the sense that you will never have a solution that fits all. So to understand what kind of tooling you need to really understand your company and ask the right questions. So this is something that we will look into prior to any requirements setting. So let's dive into that first. We focus on 6 topics around your company that we think are important to take the necessary time for. The first one is the maturity level of your company. It is important to understand the maturity of your company when it comes to data and data quality. How aware are people in the organization on the importance of qualitative data? How much are people affected and feeling the impact of bad data quality in their day-to-day business? And to which extent are people willing to invest time and effort in data quality, tooling, processes, and also the people aspect? You will see that it's very different team per team, and that's perfectly normal. To make the reference to last time, teams that are working on AI models based on complex data will typically be more aware on the importance of data quality than your average salesperson in your organization. And that's perfectly fine. But different teams will have different maturity levels, and you need to have at least support from some business teams and a part of the IT team to be able to do this exercise. You will need them to help build your data quality business case, but also get the necessary support for the implementation of your tooling and also to create adoption. And that is the real third point that we have here. Adoption is key. You can buy whatever interesting and top-notch data quality tool, but if you do not have the adoption behind it, it's wasted money. So you really need to think about making sure that there is that you can support the adoption to have a real value of your investment. The second point is maybe very logical, but think about why are you doing this? Sit together with your main stakeholders, which are typically the ambassadors of the different teams, and think about why are we doing it and why are we doing it now? Why do we want to invest today in data quality tooling? It helps to create a common agreement and get the necessary support that you will need from different teams to convince people on the investment that will need to be done. Also think about what you want to achieve and by when you want to achieve that. Typically, expectations of the different stakeholders will be very different, and that's not a problem, but make sure that they're fully clarified. Defining that why will help you to identify the key capabilities that you will expect from a new data quality tooling. So really an important step to take. And the third point that I wanted to highlight is look at your general data strategy that is already existing within your company. Make sure that whatever you are developing fits into that approach. And also look at existing architectural visions or discuss with your architects on their vision, so to make sure that it's something that is fitting in your organization. So for example, if there is an architectural vision more on with a shift left approach, then of course that's very good, but that will entail that it will be a more data engineering approach where you will implement data quality checks end-to-end in your data pipelines, and that will have certain impacts on the type of tool that you will choose. So important to put on paper and to realize.
Yeah, and that will bring me to the next point, which is basically the organizational structure, which aligns completely with what you just said, with defining, do we want to have a tech initiated or do we want to have a business initiated requirements that are coming together into a tool? And that is quite an important discussion or decision that you need to make, and ideally upfront, right? But also, you want to understand how we want to operate, because if we want to go for a self-service model, that means that you are putting the responsibility and the independence at your users, at your business stakeholders or your data stewards. But also at the same time, we see a lot that it's also more an IT-driven decision, where it's focused on a centralized approach, like I said, in IT, but luckily we also have a hybrid, which we can also recommend, where you are combining the two. So you are really working or collaborating together with your business data stewards and your IT organization if it's managed like that. So that is really important to keep in mind, upfront, basically, that you understand what you want to achieve, which aligns with what you just said. And also because we are looking at the organization structure and also your company data strategy, it is super crucial that you also see what we have already in place, right? What is already existing today, and does that plug and play with some tools that you see in the market as well, and how that will fit. We will come to that in my next point, which is more related to the complexity of your data landscape. Every company is unique, as Lynn said. It's also important to really understand if we have a diverse source system, we have many systems that we work with, we really need to understand what the impact is and what type of metrics and data quality checks that we want to do on these systems as well. Also, the number of data sets is super crucial, because it's volume-based, and we'll get to pricing a bit later, but it is crucial to understand what are the volumes or the scope that we want to define for data quality in the beginning. Also, the next step, which is diversity of your user groups. It's super crucial, again, to understand who are actually going to use, or who is your end user, who is going to interact with that tool, because that will be crucial in your decision point if we are going for technical or more business related implementation, and that is also vendor specific. Also, last but not least, SLAs. We hear it all the time, but it's really important that we also understand what is the service level agreement that you expect from your data and from your tool with regards to data. How fast do we want to report on the errors that we see in the data and so on? So that's also crucial to identify and to discuss upfront. Then the next one is to really start by use case. We really love to take an approach where we go use case per use case to make it concrete, but also to really focus on the value that's being delivered. It's really the idea to identify all the data needs that you have, but make it again a staged approach where we can also understand what do we want to do, why do we want to achieve it, and that's what you also mentioned. It's important to start with the why, but also how are we going to get there, but also from a business sponsor perspective, who is going to actually invest from your company in the tool that you are bringing to the table, or in that strategic or more structural investment into data quality. And again, for value and priority, it's key that you also align and you share this knowledge with your key stakeholder group, with your users, with your architects, with your IT organization, but also with your business organization, to really understand what do we define under value, and do we give the same priority to a certain use case. And then finally, also, capability-wise, what do we need? And that's really focusing on the how do we get there? How do we get that tool finally implemented with the right attention as well? It's really understanding, which teams do we need? Do we need more technical support, business support, and so on? That will help you and make that informed decision, I would say.
Yeah, I think really the importance of making sure that you list the use cases that live in your organization where there is a real value creation, and you can show what is the data quality value that you will create on top, is going to help you on different elements. It will help you create your business case, make sure that you can prove that by investing in data quality, you will be able to create more value specifically on this and this and this use case. It will help to validate your why that we just discussed.
Yep.
It will also help you in the next steps when we talk about requirements to put priority in those. And maybe a last one, which is, I think, very important, is the fact that you will be able to use some of those use cases to test potential vendors on. We will come back to that, but testing is very important, and having those specific use cases will help you to test the right elements before you take any decisions on vendors. So,
very good point.
Okay, well, now we have defined some elements that we definitely need to take into account on our company before we can even think about looking at possibilities, data quality toolings, vendors, and so on. Now, when we are looking a bit more to the tooling options, there is a large amount of possibilities, a lot of external vendors that are available. There are also internal options. Too much to put here on the table, but I think it's important that we talk about some advantages and disadvantages of those different options. We talk about self-built data quality toolings. There are companies that at least start off with building their own data quality toolings themselves without buying really an external data quality tooling. Second case is the idea of using open source toolings that are available in the market. And then, of course, the third category is more the high-end full solutions that you can buy on the market. So if I look first to the self-built data quality checks, well, on the positive side, those data quality toolings and data quality checks are really built with the best intentions, typically based on the available technical profiles within the organization, and that understand the importance of data quality. You start building data quality toolings in function of very specific needs that you have as a company. The advantage is that those solutions and those checks that you build up will be totally in line with your technical capabilities at that time, and will probably perfectly match the needs that you have at that time. So that's really a good thing. But there are also some elements to take into account. often when data quality toolings are built in-house, a lot of the costs that are related to that are not really taken into account. You have costs of development, of maintenance, but also each time that there is a new use case or that your maturity is growing, you will need to catch up and let your products evolve. There is real big costs related to that, and often that is not really looked at. And when you compare that with buying external toolings, you need to make sure that you take all costs into consideration. Another reflection is the fact that you start off with that, with building some own data quality tooling, but at some point, the needs will probably grow way beyond what you can offer yourself as an internal team to your internal clients. And if at that time you decide that you switch to an external tool, of course, you will have the technical debt that you will have to solve. You will never be able to offer to your internal clients the same functionalities or the same range of functionalities that are being offered by external toolings. So at some point, you will need to take decisions. And all kinds of elements, such as making sure that your toolings are updated, taking into account updates of other toolings where it needs to interact on. That's something that you will have to manage yourself, where if you buy an external tools, those elements are managed by those external tools. Very interesting.
Indeed. No, very interesting. Also something that I wanted to add, Lynn. It's a data quality journey, as we would like to call it. So wherever you are in your journey, in your steps, these tips can really help you. We will continue on the. Oh, sorry.
There's some more stuff to say.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
On the self-build side as well, often what is also done is using data quality functionalities that are available in source systems. And that's really good when you have very specific types of data for which data quality functionalities are offered by the toolings. But not all source toolings will have that capabilities. And even if they do, it again has limitations in the sense that using data quality functionalities of the source toolings themselves will put a pressure and create costs on source system side as well. And also from a transparency perspective, it is important as a company that you have an overview of the data quality checks that you perform on the different data sets, especially in a situation where you offer data products to your internal clients. They will want to know what is the data quality guarantees that they receive, data contract-wise or so. And for that, of course, it is important that in one tooling, you are able to show transparently what the data quality is. And that's typically something where you need a real external tooling for. When we look at open source toolings, well, the advantages, costs are limited. And I say limited, not it's for free, because the tool in itself might be free, but again, there are costs related to implementation of any tooling, also open source. I think it's a really perfect idea to use open source toolings to build up your first use cases. You take an open source toolings with a limited technical development, you can get started and you learn a lot and you can grow as you want. Of course, there are limitations. Typically, open source toolings have a more technical focus, so often will require a certain level of coding, so less focused on business. The capabilities are, of course, more limited, and also the support that is offered. There is support offered by open source toolings, but depending on your needs and the SLAs that you put forward, you will not be necessarily covered by the open source toolings. The upside, of course, is when you start with open source toolings, there are different open source toolings where you can start, and then at a certain moment when your needs become bigger, you can easily switch to a paying version of the same tooling. So that is something that you can keep in mind. And then the third category, the all-round solutions. Well, of course, on a positive side, you have a wide range of functionalities and of features. Not saying that every tool will be able to offer the same solution. They have both the technical approach and more business approach. Again, Some will be more business focused, some will be more technical focused, but in general, they offer a wide list of functionalities. Everything which is related to updates, patches on the tooling will be included in those toolings. Typically, you can go much further in support, in documentation, in training, and so on. And typically, a lot of the connectors that you will need to integrate with databases, data warehouses, analytical platforms will be out of the box, or at least will be easy. Of course, the downside is there is an investment, an external investment to be done, which can be quite big, depending on your needs, the volumes that you need, the type of users, and so on. But yeah, I think with what you know about your company and what we will explain in our next steps, here are also already some clues on what would be the best fit in type of toolings for you.
Indeed. Thank you, Lynn. And then we will move over to the 6 advices, where we will start with requirement. We put it here for a reason. We've indeed discussed, okay, this is our organization, this is our data strategy, and then the next step will be, okay, what is there or what is out there in the tooling market in the different steps that we just see. However, we start with requirements now for a reason, because we have classic data quality requirements, such as I want to make sure that we have data profiling enabled. I want to do my data quality checks. I want to receive alerts when there is an issue or an error. And we want to build custom workflows, or we have additional reporting needs that we would need to cover. These are which we call classic or typical data quality needs, which you need to cover. However, it's also important to also not forget about, for example, IT security and compliance, which is more on the regulatory side, I would say. I can best explain that by an example. Is if your preferred tool, it basically ticks all the boxes, right, of your classic data quality checks, then it's super important to check with security. Okay, hey, this vendor ticks all our boxes. We are happy with this. Can we now move over to a POC or a POC? And then security blocks it due to regulatory requirements that they are saying, no, sorry, it's not possible to deploy it. So that's why we say, please include them and include all your important stakeholders from the start in your approach, because that will save you some time and some frustration at the end. Other expectation to keep in mind is also the support, the documentation, and the training, which is the second point. And there, it's also what Lynn mentioned. It depends on the maturity of your organization today and what type of support would you need from your vendor, basically. Do you need more technical support? Do you need architects? What is it basically that you are missing? And also in your current, it can not only, or it's not only maturity, but it's also capacity. And that's also something that we see with clients, that they want to focus on it, but they don't have the right resources or the right time at that moment to start focusing on it. And then, that brings me to the next point, which is also important, to split your must-haves and your nice-to-haves. We have discussed the classic data quality requirements, which are key. We have some, for example, like the one we mentioned with security and compliance. You really need to think about your unique perspective, your unique requirements, which can also be industry-specific. It can be, like I said, regulatory, depending on your ecosystem that you're operating in. But therefore, it's important to basically take them apart and focus on the must-haves first. For example, you want to create a custom complex workflow. It's not super crucial, but you really want to get started. Well, if you are only getting started, well, perhaps it's not super important, because out of your tools that are, or the vendors that are existing, they have out-of-the-box workflows that you can already make use of. Also, if you want to go more complex, you have more AI-generated workflows, which also some tools can also help you with. So that's also something to keep in mind. Which brings me to the next point. This is also very, very logical. Take your time, but we see it too much or too many times that people try to rush through requirements, want to make sure that we have everybody's signature, but it's really a tooling selection takes time, and we also want to make sure we have the right stakeholders and we have quality feedback from the stakeholders, just to make sure that we are making the right decision. not only from your stakeholders, but also from the vendor, right? You need to make sure that everything fits together in your timeline. But again, take your time. Which brings me to my next point, which is on cost. We discussed it already a little bit, but what we always like to say or to share with you is that we see two types of total cost of ownership, or TCOs as we call it. So you have more the traditional way where you are calculating your direct and indirect costs of your product or service. But what we see is that sometimes when we are making data quality decisions or investments, we really need to think about and include perhaps the indirect or the perceived costs, which are not necessarily in a typical accounting way of or an IT finance way of calculating your TCO. That can be obviously the cost of your actual tool. It can be the cost of the existing solution or the workaround that you have in place, or custom development that you are doing, taking into account your maintenance cost, but also the implementation cost. And I think these type of factors, such as like implementation, deployment, configuration, your setup, and making sure that it's rolled out and it's actually used by your stakeholders, it's sometimes forgotten in your cost, and that is something important to mention. Also, if we don't have the capacity or the right knowledge in house, well, perhaps we need advisory or we need help to implement a solution like that. And also something that I want to raise is training. It's always.
It also has a cost.
It also has a cost, and that's why we define always two types of TCOs. We call it's the business total cost of ownership, but it's really important to look into all the factors, also the more indirect and perceived cost that you usually don't tackle in your TCO exercise. Then what brings us to the next point is the data quality pricing models. So there are some models out there. It's subscription based for your whole organization, big bam, first come, first serve. And then the second one can be, I want to pay per user, or we pay per instance. And then another model is to say, okay, we are not looking into users, we are not looking into your organization, but we want to look into your volumes. And then the point that we discussed earlier on your the number of tables, the number of sources that you want to connect are becoming more and more crucial, because it means at this point in time, in your current as is or in your current scenario or state, okay, we only have five data sources that we want to connect, and the tables, it's not more than 10,000 or more than thousands. So that means that the cost in the beginning, it will look like it's on the less expensive side. Let's keep it like that. But then in the future, if you ramp up and you have that engagement going and you have that adoption moving forward, then it's becoming more and more expensive. And that is also something that we really want to share with you today. Think about it. What is your as is, and also what is your data ambition in the future, and what will that cost driver mean then for you in that case?
Yeah, so calculating TCO is not only year 1, but also year 2, year 3.
Exactly, and taking into account everything, including training, implementation, advisory, and so on. But again, I want to finalize this cost point of view with one statement, which I really love always to say. It's remember that it's really the goal, or it's absolutely not the goal, to go for a cheapest tool, because as you will see, you need to look for value in your investment, not only today, but also in the future, just to make sure that it also fits with your ambitions, also your personal feeling about the tool and the vendor. That's really something to keep in mind.
So it's not the lowest license cost that will be the best party.
Exactly. So keep this in mind, and then Lynn will tell us what's next.
Yeah. What's next is maybe here a strange question. Maybe you would think it would be rather the last topic, but I put it intentionally here because at some point, and we think we should do it at an early stage, is to think about, first of all, the implementation plan. You buy a data quality tooling, and then don't start thinking about implementation when you have bought the tool. Think upfront, think about, again, your use cases, your priorities that you set, and how you will tackle those first use cases. Who needs to be involved? Who has time to work on that? What are technical constraints that you need to focus on, and so on. But even a more important one is engagement and adoption. As we said in the beginning, adoption is key. So you will buy a new tooling, perhaps, at a certain time. And then you need to make sure that people will actually want to use it. that people know how to use it, that people don't try to not use the tool, and so on. So think about that plan already now, already during your reflections on tooling, because when you only think about that when the tooling is bought, it's already too late. So think about what change management plans you need, what communication strategies you need, how you can involve use case teams, for example, in the testing of your tooling, to already get a sense of how it would work, what it could bring them, and so on.
Yeah.
And then a really important one, I think, is try before you buy.
Yeah.
Often vendors, they will give you a demo, they will give you all kinds of documentation, but it's really hard based on that to really feel if it's going to be the right fit for you. So they will often come with references, client references, really interesting, but also talk to other people, talk to people that you know in other companies that have similar experiences, or work in similar companies, and then might have already contact with certain vendors, experience with certain vendors, and see what their good points and bad points were. But also maybe in your own company, you might have people who in a previous job have had experience with certain tooling or certain ways of working. Take that information with you. But also ask always your vendor to do a pilot or a test case or whatever you call it. It's only when you take the tool, try it out yourself with some people from more technical teams, with some people from more business teams, that you will really feel how it works, if it can fit in your organization, if the things that the vendor promises actually work. For example, user friendliness. Every tool will say it's user friendly, but there are a lot of differences in user friendliness, and it will also depend on what you expect and what you need. So definitely try it before you buy it, but also that means that you need to foresee the necessary time and capacity in your organization to do those POCs. It's going to take time and work, and therefore costs, so do take that into account. And then the last point related to that is also make sure that you clearly understand what the policies are within your company regarding POCs, because of course at some point you will share information with the vendor in that case, and you need to make sure that the requirements, the policies regarding POCs is not super heavy, because then you will easily be blocked in your POC test. And I think you had
an example as well. But I also want to elaborate a bit more, is that if we already know this is my organization, we have our requirements defined, and we keep our stakeholders informed, including security, that means that this will no longer be an issue for you at all. So that's good. But,
yeah. So I think with those 6 advices, we already give a lot of thoughts that you can start off with in your vendor selection.
Yeah, I think you also covered basically the same, right, on the first impressions. That is super key.
Oh, sorry, forget that one, indeed.
No, just
Go ahead.
I was moving already ahead, so indeed on the first impressions, it's really important to interact with your vendor. Keep it human, because we always see a lot of nice, fancy slides, but really to understand what will be the impact for our stakeholders, for our clients as well. That's really important, that you have that also that gut feel. Okay, is this really going to make a difference, and is it actually going to be used? That's key.
And already just the reactivity of vendors when you ask questions, how fit their answers are, if they just give you random standard answers, or if you have extra questions, do they respond quickly with the right answers? Do they have a decent input for your TCO calculations and so on? I'm not saying that is the most important criterion to select on, but it's really,
it's the full package with all the advices and everything that we discussed, which you need to really structurally keep in mind.
It might give you a view on how it will be to work with a vendor in a real situations afterward.
Exactly. Which brings us already to the conclusion. So indeed, like we just said, let's give a short recap of what we just discussed, and the importance of it. So first of all, we checked and we had a look at your company's environment answering the why and the what and how do we get there eventually. And also in that journey, it's important that you make the right decisions or a good informed decision, and also to make that choice on, are we going to build something for now? Are we going to buy something? And also, how do we see that managed in your own organization? And I hope, and I'm sure our 6 tips can give you these handles to really get going, and wherever you are in your journey, to start. And never forget to try before you buy. So we hope you learned something today. And if not, we hope we refresh your memory, because it's always nice to share like this to you. Unfortunately, we cannot see you guys, but thanks a lot for joining. And we also hope to see you in the next data quality webinar that we will give. And also, don't forget, if there are struggles, you have any other questions popping up, we are here to help. We are here to support you wherever you are in your process or in your data quality journey, as we would like to call it. So thank you massively for joining. Also, Lynn, thank you for your time. And we hope to see you in the next one.